Good morning. It is so good to have everybody here with us this morning. We always appreciate our online friends being with us whenever they are available as well. What first comes to mind when you hear the word treasure? Treasure. Some of us may imagine a sunken Spanish galleon with chest of gold coins at the bottom of the sea. Or maybe it's diamonds or gems or precious stones. It could be something of great sentimental value, a family heirloom passed down from generation to generation. Treasure designates something of great value, which we hold close and we don't want to lose. So what do we treasure most in this life? What do we treasure most in this life? We've heard this saying, you'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. So we know we're not taking anything with us when we die. Luke chapter 12, verse 34 tells us, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So our hearts, our minds, our attitudes, our fruit reveal what's most important to us, where we're storing our treasure. This morning we're going to begin in the book of Matthew. If you would turn to Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6. We're going to begin in verse 19. Matthew chapter 6, verse 19. It says, don't store up treasure here on earth, where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. So what is Jesus saying here? He's saying, don't become more concerned about the gifts than the giver. Don't become more concerned about the gifts than the giver. He cares more about the condition of our hearts more than the condition of our bank accounts. He's not saying don't provide for your families, don't be responsible with your finances, but he is calling us to be good stewards with all that he graciously gives us. But what he's really doing is he's calling us to prioritize what's most important. Prioritize what's most important. Storing our treasures in heaven. I recently saw a quote that said, our eternal perspective affects our earthly priorities. Our eternal perspective affects our earthly priorities. While we're here in the book of Matthew, if you would turn over a few more chapters into Matthew chapter 13. Matthew chapter 13. Matthew chapter 13, verse 44 says, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure that a man discovered hidden in a field. In his excitement, he hid it again and sold everything he owned to get enough money to buy that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant on the lookout for choice pearls. When he discovered a pearl of great value, he sold everything he owned and bought it. The kingdom of heaven is like. The kingdom of heaven is like. It's like a treasure. A treasure. Picture a worker in a field plowing the ground. He's plowing the ground behind an ox, walking the field with the plow, turning the soil, and all of a sudden, thump, he hits something. He digs down and finds what he caught. He thought maybe it's a rock. Instead, he finds treasure. Treasure buried in that field. He doesn't own the field. He's just a worker plowing the field. So what does he do? He covers it back up. He doesn't reveal this treasure to the owner. He realizes this is something I want to own. So he goes and he sells everything he possibly has to acquire that field. Why? Because he wants the treasure that's in that field. Similarly, we have the story of the merchant. He is on the lookout for that perfect, flawless pearl. He's looked high and low and high and low, and he stumbles across it. This pearl has such value, such great value. He realizes this is it. This is the one I've been looking for. So what does he do? He scrounges up everything he owns, everything of value. He sells it. He lets go of it so he can purchase that pearl. In these parables, Jesus is describing himself. He is the hidden treasure in the field. He is the pearl of great price. He is the thing that is of the supreme value. And so what he's trying to help the people of his day and us today realize is no matter what this world may offer, beyond the glitter, beyond the affirmation, the acclamation, everything that appeals to us on this earth, that Satan parades before us all day, every day. He says, I'm the greatest value. I'm the greatest treasure you can ever have. But you've got to let go of everything. Notice this doesn't say they sold part of what they owned to buy this field. The merchant didn't sell part of what he owned to buy that pearl of great price. They sold everything. They let go of everything. They realized this is the best. It eclipses everything. It is the only thing of value that we need. And Jesus is trying to help us understand the same. When we see him, when we see what he offers, when we see what he's done for us on the cross, when we see heaven approaching, each one of us is one day closer to eternity. He's trying to help us realize we got to let go of everything this earth tries to tie us to. And we got to say, you know, he is the best. He is the only thing. It's not like, here's the value of things on earth and here's the value of Jesus. It's like, here's Jesus and here's anything that this earth tries to appeal to us with. And so he's helping us to try to keep perspective here, trying to help us realize, yeah, you've got to be able to have finances. You've got to take care of your family. You've got to work. You've got to provide. He's just saying, don't become obsessed with riches. Don't let that become our God. Don't let that become priority. He says, I've given you these things to use. You're a steward and you're to use them in my service. That's the goal. It's about him. It's all about him. It's not about us. And Satan wants us to focus on us and think, well, I just got this big raise. I got this paycheck. I got this bonus. What am I going to do with it? What can I spend it on? And we all automatically, without even thinking, that's just the instinct. What can I do with this for me? What can I do with this for me? Instead, he's trying to help us to reorganize that thought process. He's trying to help us realize, Lord, what do you want me to do with this? He's the one that gave it to us. He's the one that blessed us with this. He's the one that enabled us with the health and the strength and the ability to earn it. And so he's trying to help us understand, what do we do with what we've been given? How are we stewards? And a lot of times it's kind of confusing. There's so many things out there we can do with that. And he says, ask me. Ask me. I'll show you. I'll show you what you can do with it. I'll enable you to be able to understand the needs around you and what you can do to bless others. So what does storing up treasures in heaven look like? Let's turn over to 1 Timothy chapter 6. 1 Timothy chapter 6. First Timothy chapter 6. We're going to look down in verse 17. He says, "Teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. Tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future, so that they may experience true life." Wow. Wow. Interesting text. He starts out with a warning. He says, don't let money consume your hearts with pride. Don't let it go to your head. Whatever you're blessed with, he said, realize it's a gift. Realize it's a blessing. And he says, then, second, don't put your trust in money. Don't put your trust in money. Why? He says, because it's so unreliable. We may have what we think is a pretty good bank account one day, and all it takes is an illness, an accident, a business turnaround, and everything goes south. It's here one day, it's gone the next. And if our trust is in the money and in that influence that money has, it hurts. It hurts our souls, it hurts our spirits, and it deceives us. And so he's trying to help us keep the right perspective. He said, instead, put your trust in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. He's the provider. He is a provider. He gives us everything we need for our enjoyment. He is the source. So he wants us to put our trust completely in God alone. In God alone. Verse 18. This is how we invest in our heavenly bank account. We've got to remember that. He says, lay it for yourselves. Put aside. Realize that you're building an investment, a heavenly investment is what it is. And it's going to reap dividends that far surpass anything this earth could ever provide. So he wants us to keep that mindset, to keep that perspective. He wants us to use our finances, our time, our energy, our gifts, our talents, and our abilities to do what? To do good works. To do good works. To be generous to those in need. Always being ready to share with others. He says, I've given to you freely, I need you to give freely. He wants us to have a generous, open heart. This is about loving extravagantly. Loving extravagantly and fearlessly. Because this world challenges us in this way. All it takes is turning on the TV or the radio, and what do you hear? Every ad is focused on you. It's focused on me. What can we get out of this today? What can we get out of life today? It's about our comfort. It's about our wants. Not so much about our needs, but about our wants. And if we don't want it, then it'll appeal to a side to us that does want it. It'll make it so appealing to just, I didn't think I needed that. Yeah, I guess I do. And so there's a constant barrage against our minds to keep the focus on self. He says here, we're looking outward. We're using everything that we've been given and focus that outward. So he calls us to love. To love. To love extravagantly, to love fearlessly. Rich in good works. Rich in good works has to do with giving one of our most precious commodities, our time. Our time is one of our most precious commodities. It's one of those things that cannot be stored. Time is constantly in a forward movement. It's in a constant trekking on. We can't bottle that up. We can't contain that. And so we know how finite time is. And in light of that, we're trying to guard that time. We're trying to protect that time. There are so many hours in a day. And we each have very busy, busy lives. So in light of that, he's trying to help us understand we have to take time out of our hectic, busy schedules to meet the needs of the world around us. The world is overflowing with needs. Overflowing with needs. They are everywhere. And so many times we get our minds and our hearts hardened to those needs around us. Satan wants us to do that. He wants us to harden our hearts and just think, someone else will take care of them. They can go to somewhere else and get the help they need. And he's appealing to us. He's actually challenging our hearts. He's saying, no, look at what you've been given. What are you going to do with that? Look at the time you've been given. What are you going to do with that? If we realized we had a week left to live, if that information were given to us, and we knew for a fact that next Sunday morning at noon, our life is going to end, what would we do differently in this next week? How would that change our perspective, or does it? I think it would sharpen focus quickly into what's most important. We'd realize, you know what, there's a lot of things in this life, but the only thing that's going to remain when it all is said and done is the soul. That's the only thing that's going to exist past this life. Each one of us has one. So we need to take care of this soul, and we need to look at the souls around us. Everything else that this world has is going to burn. He tells us, he says, you know, when I come back, when all is said and done, the earth and all of its elements will burn up. It's going to go up in flames. Everything. Burn to the ground. So in light of that, when we look around at what we've stored and what we've gathered and what we think is important, and we think, you know what, if I went out and set fire to that today and burned it to the ground, that's what it's going to be like on the day he returns. So in light of that, he's calling us to realize what's most important. Where is our treasure? What is our treasure? Who is our treasure? He calls us to feed, to shelter, to take time to really listen to those who are calling out, to those who are reaching out for someone just to be there. It may be the person in the Walmart line ahead of you or behind you. They may be talking to their kids and realize, wow, they don't have quite enough to pay for this. Someone else will do it. All we got to do is I'll take care of it. Oh, you don't have to do that. No, I want to. Well, why do you want to do that? Jesus freely gave it to me. I'm passing it on. It's all his. It's all his. I'm just sharing it. You got a need, I'm here to help. He gets the glory. That's what it's all about. It may be someone on the side of the road broke down, needs some help. Needs help changing a tire. It may be a coworker who's just lost a husband, a wife, a child, a family member. Could be someone going through a divorce. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of bitterness and resentment. I'm here to listen. I'm here to pray with you. That's what he calls us to do. And that takes sacrificing one of our most precious commodities, our time. Sometimes it's easy to be able to put money out there if we've got it, but our time is a little harder. We guard that carefully. And we have to manage it wisely. But again, if the Holy Spirit is directing us, and that's the key here, we go through each day asking the Holy Spirit to point us to those people, those needs, and then equip us to meet those needs. Equip us to know what to say, what to do, how to respond. And he will equip us every time. All he calls us to do is be willing. Be willing and to have a heart of love that does this out of love, not out of resentment. He doesn't want us to do any of this out of, well, I guess I better. No, he wants us to look forward to serving and to enjoy reaching out. Only he can give us that heart. Only he can enable us. But he wants us to have the desire first, and then he'll do the increase. He'll cultivate that heart into what it needs to be. He'll transform our hearts into the people he wants us to be, to bring all glory and honor to him, to point people to him. We have to have spiritual eyes and ears open. We have to be aware of the needs around us. And then we have to respond. We don't just listen and see it and stand back. He wants us to get our hands dirty. He wants us to be willing to step in and say, you know, this isn't pretty. This isn't easy. This is hard. But with the help of the Lord, I'm here. I'm here for you. I'm here with you, no matter what it is. You know, if you're reading the Gospels, Jesus perfectly modeled how to do this. All you got to do is read the Gospels. And he was a master at this. And he shows us exactly what to do. What did he do? Well, first and foremost, he took time alone when that time was available. And what did he do? He spent time with his Father in prayer. He spent time with him, recharging, refilling that cup. We can't pour from an empty cup. He has to fill that cup every morning. His mercies are new every morning. Lord, fill my cup. Fill my cup. So I can pour out you on everybody around me. We cannot do this ourselves. We can't, don't even try it. It will be embarrassing and it will be a failure. But with his help and his Spirit doing this, it's a beautiful thing. And it's just amazing what he can do. And he can do anything beyond what we ask or imagine. We have to believe that. We have to pursue that. Look at verse 19. If we do these things, he says, if you do these things, he says, you're not only storing up treasure in heaven for the true life that awaits you, we're pointing others in the same direction. We're investing in that heavenly bank account. And at the same time, we're showing others how to do the same. We're pointing them to him. We're saying, you know what? You think you've got life here? This is nothing. I don't care if you're the richest man on earth. I don't care if you're Elon Musk. If you don't have him, you're penniless spiritually. That spiritual bank account is in the red. And that's not what he wants. He says, you just keep building. You just keep storing. You just keep blessing. You just keep sharing. You just keep building, laying up treasure, and showing others how to do the same. Helping them invest, helping them realize, you know, this is the only true satisfaction you're going to find in this life. You can chase this world and everything that's in it, and you will never find the satisfaction and the blessing that only Christ can provide. He is a source of peace. He is a true source of peace. And that's what people are searching for in this world today. You'll only find it in Him. Our job is to help this dark world realize that there is nothing more valuable than knowing Jesus and following Him. That's our mission. He says, you've got it. You don't sit on it. You don't store that. You spend that. You generously sow. You generously sow. And you let me bring the increase. He calls us to follow Him with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. All of our heart, our soul, our mind, and our strength. We pour ourselves out to Him and let Him fill us. And then we pour ourselves out to the world and let Him fill us. It's a constant process. He does. He alone in His salvation is our greatest treasure. Christ alone in His salvation is our greatest treasure. He wants us to share that. To share that. That's our goal. If we don't have this treasure, it's free. That's what's amazing. We can't purchase this treasure. Jesus paid that price on the cross for our sins. We can never, ever repay that price, that ransom that was given for our sins. So that's what our life is about. It's a life of constant service. Saying, Lord, because of what you've done for me, I am pouring myself out for you. I want you to be Lord of my life, in control of my life, in control of my thoughts, my attitudes, my speech, my actions. Lord, may everything just point to you, because heaven awaits us all if we're His. But if we're not His, I'm sorry, hell awaits. There's no in between. Remember the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man and Lazarus. The rich man was storing and storing and storing here on earth, and he says, you know what? I filled my barns up. This crop was so good. Man, it was amazing. You know what? I'm just going to keep building. I'm just going to keep building. Just increasing and increasing my wealth here on earth. And he had a poor beggar man named Lazarus sitting under his table, picking up the scraps that fell off the table to eat. Wow. That rich, that wealthy, and he turned his back on Lazarus. So they both die that night. The rich man goes to Hades. Lazarus goes to Abraham's bosom. The rich man can see Lazarus in the distance. He sees the comfort, the place of amazing beauty and peace and love that he is in. And he is stuck there in hell. And he is suffering. He is suffering so bad. He says, can you just have Lazarus dip his finger in some water and just come touch my tongue? I am in such agony. Hell is real. And it is eternal. It isn't for a limited time. It is eternal. It doesn't end. And so he wants us to remember the treasure that we have. Be thankful for that. Let's share that treasure. Let's be ever grateful and thankful. And let's make sure that He is glorified and praised for every good and perfect gift. If anyone has any needs this morning, we ask that you come as we stand and sing.